We are associated with Macmillan. It is a body, it is a publishing house that comes out with very good content, especially in the early years. And we are very thankful to Vandana for bringing us together on this platform. The three of us are going to talk about ideas to do with reading. So it's not actually a moderated panel. It's not going to be question and answers. It's going to be kind of three mini workshops, each one to do with reading. So I will now give you the order. I will be going first. After me will be Amrita, and after that will be Farida. And Farida, you will also give the winding up comments, which means you will be the one saying bye bye to the audience. I think we have an hour for this session, so which means each of us have an ample amount of time to talk to the audience about reading. So, if you don't mind, shall I start my session? Both of
Please.
you are okay with that? Wonderful. So
Yes.
I'm very, very happy that we are able to put forth so many sessions to do with reading, because reading is sometimes confused with writing. Many preschools feel that we have to teach the sounds, the letter recognition, and the writing, everything together. Please understand that yes, it can be done together, but most importantly, before a child writes anything, a child should be able to understand what the child is writing. So it is always important to understand that reading comes before writing. And that is why many children fail at reading, because the school started them off on writing things before they are able to understand. So I'm now going to give you a small breakup of what should come first when it comes to reading. So, first, importantly, one quotation: reading is the foundation of all future writing, spelling, vocabulary, and intelligence. So, all the intelligence that we have comes through listening and reading. So, what are the steps when it comes to reading? So, the steps when it comes to reading, the first step is listening skills. And that's why, as early childhood educators, we must develop the listening skills in children. And I always teach this, that if you are talking to a 1-year-old child, you should talk in one step instructions. If you're talking to a 2-year-old, talk in two-step instructions. 3-year-old, 3 steps, 4-year-old, 4 steps. What is this? Which means if you're talking to a 1-year-old child, you say come, go, sit, stand, one words, one step. If you're talking to a 2-year-old, try to now talk in 2 steps, which means go there, or come here, or pick up, or sit down, because they are able to understand 2 words together now. So, listening, you are developing their listening skills. When you're talking to a 3-year-old, start talking in 3-step instructions. So, which means when you're telling a 2-year-old, you have to say, pick up that ball and come here. So, that's 2-step instruction. Don't say, pick up that ball, then you're waiting, and then you say, come here. Then you are doing something which is not challenging for that 2-year-old stage. 3-year-olds can understand instructions in 3 steps. Pick up the ball, come here, and sit down. So when you talk in clear steps, the human brain is able to understand those instructions. And you won't believe this, but lifelong, we are not able to understand more than 4 to 5 instructions together. Shall we try it? Are you all ready? So I want you to listen to my instructions very carefully. I'm going to give you 5-step instructions. So you have to listen to those instructions and then tell me very truthfully after I complete them, were you able to do it? So now please understand, you are adults. So you're not supposed to do the instruction while I'm talking. You're supposed to wait till all 5 instructions are over, and only then you're supposed to do everything. So ready, everybody? So I'm going to give you my 5-step instructions now. I want you all to stand up, turn around, take a jump, sit down, and stand up again. So how many of you were actually trying to count those instructions? Okay. Oh my God. Yeah, yeah. Acha, okay, this is what she said. Oh, was it stand up first or was it turn around first? And many of you may have written it down, but it doesn't happen like that in the classroom. You don't tell children that I'm going to tell you instructions. You start talking. And that's why it is very important to cultivate good listening skills in children, because it's the first step of reading. So, what's the second step of reading? The second step of reading is picture recognition, which means a child should be able to recognize the different pictures around. So, which means when I show a cat to a child should be able to say cat. A child should be able. So, picture recognition. Or I can play a game with children and I can ask them pick up the card with a cat on it. So, I may not be able to speak, but I will still be able to recognize the picture and point to it. The next step of reading is picture matching. So when I'm able to match a cat picture to another cat picture or a monkey picture to another monkey picture, it is preparing me to understand the similarity of different letters, the similarity of different sounds. So picture matching becomes your next stage. And then comes naming a picture. So you understand picture recognition. I may not still be able to speak, but I will say, when you say point to a cat, I'll be able to point to it. So when you come to the stage of naming a picture, you are showing a picture to a child and a child is naming the picture. So the child is now able to identify what the picture stands for and is able to name that picture. And then comes picture sorting, which means now classification abilities come in. When I know that all the cats go together and all the mice go together and all the men go together and all the cows go together, that means you're preparing me for identification of shapes, which means tomorrow when you will say put all the B letters together or the C letters together, this activity has prepared me for identification of different shapes. And then comes visual memory, which means what is missing. So, which means you show me pictures in which something is missing, and you ask me to identify. And maybe I'll show you a aeroplane picture with one of the wings missing, or I will show you an animal's picture with maybe one of the legs missing. It should be missing, and it should be missing from the perspective that the child is seeing. You can't show a picture of a animal which is a side view and the two legs are behind and say, see, they are missing. They're not missing. The picture was like that. Now, when you give activities like what is missing, you are able to heighten and improve the child's ability to observe. Because the most important thing in reading is to be able to see the difference between an H and an M, or a M and an N. So it's very, very important to increase observational skills in children. Reading also tomorrow will be converted to writing. When I'm able to identify what is missing, I will be able to write better because I will know that a certain curve or a certain loop is missing in this letter. I will be able to do it myself and not wait for the teacher to correct my work. Because it's very important, as Maria Montessori says, self correction skills need to be developed in children. So these steps, when I say can be done through games, can be done through worksheet activities, can be done through anything, but it's always better to be done through games. Reading readiness is always better when it is done through interactions and games. So it's listening skills, picture recognition, picture matching, naming a picture, picture sorting, and then visual memory. So these are some of the things that if children are still struggling with reading skills, these are some of the games that you must include in your curriculum, because it is very, very important that children get to see these games, get to experience these games to understand the art of reading. Now, very importantly, we think that reading can only be done with the books, with visual activities. Let's see how you can do reading with songs. Maria Montessori especially says that listening, if listening is the first step of reading, then you must include in your curriculum action songs, finger plays, stories, rhymes. You must label the environment. So children must see print in their environment. You must give ample drawing activities to children, because listening is also very connected to speaking, because the next step of listening is, of course, speaking. When I draw and then you ask me what have you drawn, you are cultivating my speaking skills. So it is very, very important that you need drawing, and then of course games and activities. Now it's very, very important that reading involves certain skills. Which are they? They are motor control, they are visual discrimination, they are audio discrimination, and then language. So when you say motor control, what motor control is required in reading? Yes, there is motor control required in reading. A, first you will have to sit and focus when you are reading. B, you will have left to right. And if your language is different, like we in UAE schools, we have Arabic. So which means it's right to left. But whichever language it is, motor control is required. You will then need visual discrimination, which means each letter is different. I should be able to identify it with my eyes when I am reading. Audio discrimination. Reading happens first, read out loud. When children first read, they start reading cat is bat. They are also hearing themselves read. And then they, of course, internalize the reading. So audio discrimination is a very important skill. And the last skill, of course, is language. If children are not spoken to in the language that you are trying to make them read in, they will not understand what they are reading. I'll give you an example of myself when I was a 3-year-old. I was very smart, naturally. So when my mummy used to tell me a story, she used to put her finger under the words and she would read the story out to me. I was so smart, I had by hearted all the stories. So when guests would come, my mummy would say she's able to read. And I would put the finger under each word, and I had by hearted the whole story that my mother had told me. And I would read it thinking I'm reading, but actually that was not reading. So it's very, very important that children must understand what they are reading. So if you are saying cat naps, what is a nap for a child? If the child doesn't know the word nap, if it is not used often in the vocabulary that the adults speak to the child, then the child will say the word nap, but it means nothing to the child. We don't want reading to happen like that. We want reading to have a meaning for the child. So it's very, very important that we must have language as a very important aspect. LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, writing. So it's very, very important. Now, you can do reading activities in many areas in your classroom. So for example, motor control. How can you build motor control in children? You can do it in block building. You can do it in painting, drawing, craft, use stencils, brushes, scissors. These are all motor control activities, jigsaws. So when your children are playing with these games or these toys, and your parents come and tell you, what are they doing? You can very proudly say, I'm giving them the foundation of reading, because motor control is required in reading. And all these activities are building your child's motor control. Friends, as early childhood educators, it's also our duty to educate parents. We cannot keep grumbling about the fact that parents don't understand what we are doing and parents are forcing us to do this. It is our duty to educate parents about early childhood education. So where motor control is concerned, you can give these activities. The next is visual discrimination. What kind of activities can you give for visual discrimination? You can have matching games. You can have games in which you have odd man out. You have games of dot to dot. You can have games in which the child goes from one point to the other point. You can have look and say cards. You can have picture recognition games. So all these are very good for visual discrimination. There's one game which we have where we make 4 corners and we put a picture in that corner, and then we say run, and when the music stops, I will name one picture and you all have to go and stand there. So this is also a visual discrimination game, because when you say cat, The child has to search for the visual of a cat, and maybe the other visual was a tiger. Now the child has to differentiate that which is the cat and which is the tiger. So this is the visual discrimination game, very required for reading. Next comes your audio discrimination. How can you do audio discrimination with children? Depending on their age groups, rhymes, singing, music, uh, choosing games which have, say, like a housey, a picture housey, which is helping you both in audio and visual discrimination. So I have put some pictures on a housey card. The teacher says cat. I have to listen to the word cat and I have to find the cat on my housey card and I have to put a mark on it. So it's very, very important for us to understand that reading is not just reading. You will have to develop a liking for reading. You will have to hone their readiness skills for reading. Because please understand, they are reading in a language which is foreign to them. It's not a language that may be spoken at home. So it's a English language is usually the second language of most children, especially in our countries. So it is important that you give enough reading readiness exercises to children before you start giving them reading. Because in those reading readiness exercises only, there is enough of reading happening. And without realizing it, the child has started reading. Very important. I say when a child starts taking an object, say I have this object, and say for example, a child is eating a banana. For a long time, it's just a banana to the child, and suddenly one day you will notice that the child holds the banana and puts it here and starts talking, imagining that it is a phone. That that my friends, that stage when that happens is actually the stage where you know the child is ready for reading and writing. Writing, not of course words and all, but writing as in patterns. Why is this stage important? This stage is called representation stage, which means I'm now able to look at a banana and see a phone. So I'm able to represent. Now why is this important? When you show a real cat to a child, the child sees a cat. But then you show a picture of a cat to a child, and you are now telling the child this is the same as that real cat. And then you show the word cat to a child, and you are telling a child this is the same as that real cat you saw. So in those words CAT, the child is able to visualize a cat. Visual representation. So most important that role play should happen in your classrooms, and role play not with real objects. Let children imagine, let children use, let children represent. So I wanted to make a steering wheel. I didn't have it. So maybe I will take a plate and I will imagine it to be a steering wheel. So it's very, very important stage of reading readiness. Representation skills are what prepares your child for reading and writing. Many early childhood educators are unaware of these skills, and many of them just jump into reading and jump into writing, which is detrimental for the future of all children. So, very, very important, friends. I usually use a blended approach when it comes to reading. I also use the Glendoman approach. The Glendoman approach is basically shape based reading, which means children recognize the shape of a word and they are able to read because it's shown to them over a period of time. And you will require this in many words in the English language, which you cannot read phonetically. It will be required in spelling. Like, for example, if I were to suddenly throw a word at you and say, spell it, say business. And if I ask you, is the first S double or the last S double? You will suddenly be floundering. Oh my God, what's the spelling of business? You won't sound it out phonetically. You will try to think and visualize the word. So visualization skills are a very important component both of reading and of spelling. So it's very, very important, friends, that you understand the science behind reading and then embark on this journey of teaching children to read. The books you buy, the equipment you buy, the curriculum you design should be based on the science behind reading. That, my friend, is the most important thing that you all need to learn about reading. Now, my last point. Why is reading such a challenge? It's a challenge to most children. So science says, and I'm going to read, is that reading is a challenge because it's unnatural. Unlike spoken language, it does not come from observation and imitation. Do you understand that? Spoken language, you observe, you imitate, and you learn. Reading cannot be learned like that. You cannot observe somebody else reading and you will learn reading. You may like reading because you observed somebody. So it's very important. And imitation, what I did as a 3-year-old, that's not called reading. There are specific regions in the brain devoted to speech and oral communication. Which are the regions in the brain devoted to reading? There aren't any. So reading is an unnatural skill. It was developed by man, and our brain is not designed for reading, and that's why many children struggle for it. So instead, it requires multiple areas in the brains. There is no one region in the brain dedicated to reading. You will need motor control, visual control, auditory control, language, which means speech. So which means multiple regions have to come together for a child to read. So think about it, why we say it's a whole brain activity. And very importantly, it means turning print into words, into pictures, into thoughts and memories. Such an important, difficult task for very young children. And that's why, friends, follow the steps that I have just enumerated to you. Do it with games, do it with activities, teach it to parents. Don't hesitate in teaching parents. Don't think parents want you to do what they want you to do. Parents sometimes want to know from you, the experts, what is right and what is wrong. So it is very, very important, my friends, that when we talk about reading, later to reading will automatically come spelling. And spelling is the worst part. Oh my God, I feel we should have a webinar only on spellings. Because look at some of the words like through, bow, rough, and out. These are all OG words, right? But each one has a different pronunciation. And then we say what? English is a funny language. This is how some things are pronounced. So spelling again requires multiple skills, but that is a different topic for a different webinar. We promise you we'll be coming back for that. But reading, my friends, very importantly, follow the steps, make it interesting, understand the reading process, and don't push children into reading when they are not ready. Have a reading around you. Have label everything that you can around you. Name everything that you can around you. The more children see print, the more they will be interested in reading. And friends, my last advice to all of you. At Early Childhood Association, if you're not a member, please become a member of the Early Childhood Association, www.eca-india.org. At the Early Childhood Association, we do a quality audit of many products because many corporates come to us to get their product audited. Like, for example, Amrita and Farida were involved in creating the content, learning content for Woot Kids. And they brought Woot Kids to us for a quality audit, and we have quality audited that whole product. Many companies come to us, and sometimes we reject their products. Do you know why? We reject because they did a lot of reading activities in all capital letters. And that's where your first argument, which most preschools have, that when we are writing, should we start with capital letters or small letters? My friends, reading happens mostly 92% in all small print. So when you are labeling your environment or creating reading books, please follow small print. Capitals are only used at the beginning of sentences and for many words that start with capitals. But otherwise, capitals are not used. So now you can see your reading program and your writing program is intrinsically linked. You make a mistake with one, you're going to make a mistake with the other. So please do not pick up books where things are written in all capitals. Please do not label your classrooms in all capitals because you want children to read, and reading is always in small print. So thank you, friends, for giving me a patient ear. And if you want any of my presentations on reading, they are uploaded on the Early Childhood Association website on the member link. So if you are a member, you can go on your member link and download a lot of material from there. That's why I urge, please become a member of the Early Childhood Association. You can become a member from any country. And if you face an issue, you can always write to us from our website. I once again thank Macmillan for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on reading. I would now invite Amrita. As I said, I'm a huge fan of both of these lovely ladies. And Amrita, over to you. And congratulations on EduCart.
Thank you. And thank you so much for such a nice introduction. And, when you say you're a huge fan, it just means so much that I think the world has just opened up to hear it from you. Yes. When you hear it from the horse's mouth. Yes.
I agree. I totally agree.
Okay. So now I think, Dr. Vats, you have said everything there is to say. There are very few things left for us to say, but we'll take on, from wherever you stopped, and we'll start. So I think now that listening, speaking, reading, and writing has been established really well, because without listening and speaking, reading and writing doesn't happen over there. So when children actually when they actually listen to stories, listen to people talk, they're developing certain skills. They're developing that ability to detect, discriminate, identify sounds in the context of the word and in the sentence. So people are understanding what you're saying. And there is no point of reading if there is no understanding. So let's go further into all the components of reading. So when a child learns to read, he needs to first understand concepts about print. Print is written from left to right, it's written from top to bottom. How is the layout of the page? What are these punctuations over there? And a child needs to become familiar with all those things. So one great activity to do is just give the child a book, any book, or a magazine. Ask him if it's upside down. Ask him which is the front cover. Ask him which is the back page. What is the title that he can see? Once a child associates print with what is being said, and he understands a layout. Magazines have a different layout, books have a different layout, poems have a different layout. But they are all connected with print and the written word. And when children are reading, they need to understand it comes in different forms. It comes in the form of a newspaper. It comes in the form of a book. So that is a very good activity that you can do, is first just introduce them to books and to the written word and to the print. Now the next thing is phonological awareness. What is phonological awareness? Phonological awareness is not the same as phonemic awareness. When we're talking about phonemes, we're talking about phoneme is the smallest unit of sound. So when I say A, it says the phoneme is A. The sound is A. And when I write the A, that's a grapheme. Now when I match the phoneme to the grapheme, that is the sound to the symbol, that becomes phonics. So now this whole phonemic awareness or phonics is different from phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is a broad term. It includes syllables, it includes rhyming, it includes alliteration. So all those things come in, and phonics is also part of it. So let's do some activities for phonological awareness. So, my son, when he was small, he couldn't pronounce the word comfortable. I know a lot of children cannot pronounce a lot of words. He had this problem with comfortable, and he kept saying comfortable, comfortable, and he would shorten all the words because he found it very difficult to pronounce such a big word. So why say hippopotamus? Just say hippopotamus and it's done. But that's not the way you read, right? Or the way you speak. So I had to break up that word for him. So it was comfortable and became comfortable. And now it became easier to pronounce. And when you have to spell, it's much easier to spell, right? So this is a strategy that we need to teach children and have them break up words. Not only if they can pronounce it, but because when they learn to spell, they will be breaking up these big words into smaller syllables. Now, a syllable is a unit of sound which has a vowel in it. So if I say Amrita, so Amrita has 3 syllables. And if you see, every unit that I broke into was had a vowel, Ri had a vowel, and Ta had a vowel. But now this is very difficult because who is going to keep track of the vowels that there are in a word, right? So I'm going to give you a strategy. You take your hand, put it under your chin, all right? And every time your chin goes down and touches your hand, it's a syllable. So, Ri, Ta. Swa, Ti. How many syllables? La, Yin. How many syllables? Tiger. Train. Now that was a big word, but it had only 1 syllable. So now you have all these syllables. But this is real fun for children when you teach them how to clap out syllables, or you can give them these little letters, these little numbers which I've written. 1, 2, 3. These cards. Just have them pick up the number of syllables or count beads and put those beads over there, put the number of syllables or any objects that you have. This is one of the steps to reading and spelling. And it becomes much easier for them to read if they've been able to understand syllabification. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to be talking about is rhyming. Now, rhyming, what is so unique about rhymes? Why should we do rhymes? If you see rhymes, the ending sounds are the same. When I have Humpty Dumpty, so you have the ending sound which is the same. Now, if I can spell Humpty, then spelling Dumpty is much easier, right? So if I can spell cat, and I just need to remove the curve from it and, substitute it with per. What do I get? A new word, pat. So here I have this whole plethora of words, but just learning just the last bit, which is the rhyme of the word. Now, for us to learn rhymes, children just naturally gravitate towards it. But for them to understand that this last ending sound will make my spelling easier is not required at this stage. But once they understand that and they start writing and they start spelling or reading, then it's going to become much easier. So give them a lot of experiences with rhymes. I'm going to tell you give you some activities that you can do with rhymes. Can you see this? This is just something I've drawn at home. Okay? I'm a firm believer that mothers should not do too much work because they, as it is, have a lot of work. So make life easy and do simple activities. Okay? So I have these pictures drawn, and then I have a start over here and I have an end over here. If you can see, take a dice, have the child throw the dice. And when it comes to whatever number comes on the dice, so it comes over here. What is this? This is a swing. Can you tell me what rhymes with swing? bring, ring, sing. So they all have the last same ending sounds. So have children play games like this. Have them rhyme things. So once they get to rhyme, when they learn to spell, it becomes much easier. These are all pre-reading activities. Another game I want to talk about is rhyme charades. So we all know how to play dumb charades. But rhyme charades is when children are exposed to rhymes, have them act out the rhyme. So if I do something like this, which rhyme is this?
Itsy bitsy.
You guessed it. All right. I'd done this somewhere else, and she said Jack and Jill. So, you get people are thinking of different things when you're talking about different things.
Yes.
Here, children understand that you're giving words, right, to actions. So a child is learning to speak, and he is giving words to actions. Also, when a child is pronouncing rhymes, saying words in a rhyme, they're learning pronunciation. And they're learning so much vocabulary. Now, where do we ever use the word fetch? Fetch a pail of water. But because of saying fetch a pail of water, a child will be curious to know, or the action will tell him that it's to pick up, to take it, whatever. So, rhymes are very important. Okay, so now I have this game. I think Dr. Watts had already spoken about Housey. She spoke about Housey being played. Housey is a great game to play at home. So here, you make these simple Housey cards, and you have these small case letters written up here. Now, when a child is learning phonemic awareness, there are certain steps that he has to follow. So he's going to be learning the letters. He's going to be identifying the letters. Then he's going to be associating the sound, and he's going to be associating the capital letter to the small letter. Then he will associate the sound to the letter. Then he will associate an object to the letter. And then after that, he will find the beginning sounds, the ending sounds, the middle sounds, and so on and so forth. So here, this activity can be played by first having the child pick up a small letter, a lowercase letter, and match it. So if you're two of you all playing it, then just keep those cards over there, and you all both can take turns picking up your card. If it's a family thing, then someone can be kept, like a real Housey game, and have them pick up those letter cards. You can also do this by having them pick up an uppercase letter and matching the lowercase letter, right? So you have already done 2 steps. If you want, you can have them also say the sound once they picked up the letter. So I've got C, I've got a lowercase c, it says K. And if you want to make it more challenging, tell me a word with K and only then cross it out. If the child has already passed this stage, then you can make cards with, word cards, and play a Housey with word cards. So if the child has already learnt his 3-letter words, he can play his Housey with his word cards. Great. So now, looking at things that we can still use to match uppercase and lowercase letters, I've taken this toilet roll. Now, everybody has these in their house, especially now in the lockdown. And don't throw them away. Just write your ABCs, and you can match it with those cards, the uppercase and the lowercase. Have them cross it out. You can just put another roll on this and, reuse it. So that's done. Okay, now I have, if there are any school teachers over here, they will know that, we have this parachute. We have this big parachute and we put in things, and children just love holding it and flapping it, and then everything falls down, and then they're picking it up. So this parachute game is a lot of fun. And usually what we do is we sing a rhyme and the children go round and round holding the parachute. Now at home, just take a scarf, put in some toys inside, whatever you have. If you have a ball, you have whatever, or you can even take spoons and things like that in your house. Have the children hold it. Do your merry-go-round. And then flap and throw everything else down. When they pick it up, they can say the sound. All right? Say the letter that it starts with. Say the sound it makes. You can say another object that begins with letter B or B. Okay. Now, this is a wonderful activity for reversals. Right? So it's very, very simple. All I've done is just made blocks. And I've written P, D, B, and Q. When children learn to read, these words are called reversals because when you keep them together, you will see that when they reverse, they look the same. And many children, like Dr. Watts had pointed out, that if you don't have them visually track and develop the motor muscles in the eye to be able to see and visually discriminate these letters, they will get confused. Now, instead of reading a dog, they will be reading a bog. And then it's not making any sense. It also leads to a lot of frustration in them because they're not able to identify. So here we have this. Take a dice. Start. And if it comes to 4, then you count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then identify what it is. So is it a Q or is it a P? So this actually saves a lot of trouble for the mother and the child because if you keep asking, you don't even know whether it's fluke or it's luck. And also the child is very, very frustrated. Am I going beyond time? Can I continue? I have a lot more. I can't hear.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes more.
2 minutes.
Oh,
You
good.
Yes.
Good. So now I will have to choose what I want to do. Okay. Actually, then if I have 2 minutes, can I request Vandana to play on that video? Because I want to speak about getting children excited about reading. It is not only about wanting to read and having so many wonderful activities, but I think children should want to read. And when they want to read, they will learn to read. They will strategize, they will decode, they will listen, they will do everything that there is to be done. So, Vandana, please can I request you to play on that 2-minute video of mine? The first step to teaching a child how to read is to have a child interested in reading. So how do we get children interested in reading? First thing is they need to be familiar with the book. They need to want to know what's happening in the book. They want to be able to turn the pages of the book and see what's happening next. And that will happen when they can identify the characters, understand the words, comprehend what is happening. So now I'm going to give you one strategy on how to make reading interesting for children. So when you have a book for a child, first show him, introduce the characters to the child. See if they're familiar with everything that is there. Don't use the words that are written because they may be too difficult, but use language that the child can understand initially. And you could also create excitement about it. So once the child has seen the characters in the book and is slightly familiar with them, you can have a little box. Then you can say, I have a box. The box has a top. Let's look inside and see what it's got. I can see something moving about. Let's open the box and get this thing out. Now you could take one of the characters from the story. Let's assume there is an ant in the story. So take out a pretend ant. And now show the child the story. You can say, this is an ant. And an imaginary ant has come out. The ant has come out. So how would this ant move? Would it take big steps or small steps? It's a tiny ant. Tiny steps. Do we like having ants walk on us? We don't like having ants walk on us. So let's show this ant. This ant is walking very fast. It's reaching your shoulder. Show it. Have the ant walk up your head, your tummy, wherever. You can make the ant walk slowly, make the ant walk fast, and then finally catch the ant and put it back in the box. You could also do that with the other characters. What if there was a butterfly or a dragon? I have a box. The box has a top. Let's peek inside and see what it's got. There's a butterfly moving about. Let's open the box and take him out. And this will get the child excited about having all the characters come alive, and then have the child go through the story. The child will feel a different kind of familiarity with the characters. So yes, this is what I would like to end with, is have children excited about reading. Have them want to read. And then you can use all these strategies that you have. Hello.
Wonderful strategies. And as I have put the website address of ECA, and if any one of you have missed this session and want to share it with others, write to us on ECA. I've put my email address of ECA, and we can share a lot of these words and presentations with you. We now go on to our third speaker, Farida, and Farida of Chryselect. And she has some wonderful ideas also to share. I have always loved her sessions, and I'm sure you all are going to be loving her session too. So over to you, Farida.
Thank you so much, Dr. Watts. So I am going to be taking inspiration from you, because you've used so many acronyms in so many of your workshops. This is one such acronym for reading. Now, what is reading? What is the READ in reading? Now, R stands for readiness, which you have so beautifully explained. I'm just going to paraphrase what you have said. So when we talk about readiness for reading, we need to realize that reading is not an identity in its own. Like you rightly said, reading is a part of the literacy strand, which has listening, speaking, reading, and then, of course, writing. Now, when you want to do reading, you need to engage your child in a lot of listening and speaking activities, which both of you all have given wonderful examples of. Now, one more thing about readiness is, readiness to track your eyes. What are the kind of activities that you would do for eye tracking? Just sit with your child, have your child sit across the room, use a ball and roll it out. So what is happening is the child is doing eye tracking, a very important skill in reading. Another activity for eye tracking is joining the dots. Wonderful activity where the child's eyes are moving in a sequential manner. One more thing that you can do is tape on the floor. Use the tape in different shapes, a zigzag line, a straight line, and have the child track and walk on the floor. This is also encouraging eye and foot tracking. Now, one more thing that I want to talk about when it comes to readiness is, let the child, when you open a book to your child, the child needs to be able to understand that there is an association of words to illustrations. When you see a picture, the child sees a picture of a bear, and that picture has another representation in words. This understanding is absolutely crucial when it comes to readiness skills. When we look at the next letter, which is E. Now, E is for enjoy and E is for engage. When we look at, all of us have been through an education system. All of us are literate. And yet, how many of us would possibly say, today I'm going to, instead of 1 hour of Netflix, I'm going to pick up a book and read for an hour? How many of us would prefer to read the Harry Potter than view the movie? What is happening over here is that the children need to be able to enjoy reading. The greatest gift that you can give your child is have a love, to create in him a love for reading. Because when you do that, you are opening a window of knowledge to your child. Another thing, what happens is when a child is enjoying this process, okay, when you are creating an environment where you're sitting with your child and reading, there's something that is happening in the brain. Happy hormones are being created, and they are associating reading to feeling happy. And when a child's brain is able to make that association, that happiness is equal to, is yes, reading is a happy feeling, he will naturally gravitate towards reading. And reading will not be a chore then. One thing I want to also bring to your notice is when you're reading with your children, there is a difference between reading books for engagement and enjoyment and reading a reader. So an example would be, this is a storybook, a wonderful storybook, which also has a musical to it, by the way. But there is a story, there's a continuity to it, and children would be engaged in the process. But for example, this is a reader. If you can see, there are certain words that are highlighted and certain words that are not. When you are reading with your child for the purpose of enjoyment, then I suggest you take books that are engaging and are more like storybooks with your child. So we've come to REA. The A stands for your alphabet sounds and your sight words. Now, I want to show you a picture. All these are letter A's. They're all 4 different symbols for one letter. And all these symbols have the same sound. Now imagine that into the 26 letters. How many symbols does a child have to remember and associate them with the correct sound? It is a lot to remember and take in. But the point, what I'm trying to say over here is, when you're teaching the alphabet sounds, you should have done a wonderful base of readiness skills. And then you do letter recognition, letter sound association games, which have been explained so beautifully earlier. We talk about matching uppercase and lowercase letter games. So, my daughter loved to play treasure hunt. So I would hide the letter tiles all over in the house and give her a time limit, and she'd have to find them. Have the child find them and then associate the sound to the letter, identify the letter, associate it with its lowercase letter. Lots can be done. After the letter sound association, I want to even talk about where even Dr. Swati mentioned naming words or labeling in your house. So when you label like this in small case. A lot of times I have noticed when I walk into classrooms, the first letter of the word. So for example, if it's a cupboard, C will be in capital. Well, that's not how it appears when a child reads a book or reads text. So, and the last thing that I want to talk about, the D, okay, is the don't drill. When I talk about don't drill, I am taken back to a memory of my childhood where we had to learn atta, cat for atta, fat, ma, atta, mat. And by the end of it, this was not fun. This was not, engaging. This was just rote routine and something that I am not going to enjoy. And the children that you are going to expose them to are also not going to enjoy. So avoid using drills to teach reading. One more thing that you should not be doing. So don't scare the children with questions. Now, I have, seen teachers and parents sometimes. You have, sat with your child and having an engaging conversation, and you've read this beautiful book. And then after that, okay, now we've read the book. So tell me, what did Red Riding Hood wear? Where did she go? Which color was, what color were her clothes? Who did she meet? The child is like, oh my God, is this an interrogation? Is this fun? So don't scare the child with the kind of questions that you're going to ask. Make sure that when you're doing a reading session with your child, it remains fun. And the questions that you ask also engage the child and ask him to think further. The last thing that I want you to do, in this don't is don't compromise comprehension over coverage. As we all know, as even Dr. Swati mentioned, that comprehension is the key to reading. When a child is reading, he's only decoding the letter sounds. But if there is no understanding, you have really not made any progress. So when you're reading with your child, most likely these children are from bilingual families. So if you're reading, we are going on a bear hunt, and if the child doesn't know what is hunt, then say the word in your local language. So the child has not compromised comprehension. So don't drill, don't scare the child with questions, and have engaging questions instead. And don't compromise comprehension over coverage. I hope this has been an engaging session, and I hope you have found value. I have absolutely loved Dr. Swati's presentation and the way you so beautifully engaged the audience. It was a monologue, but we were hooked right from listening skills to picture recognition, to picture matching, to picture naming. I could just rattle off the list, and you have gone on to, talk about the importance of all these pre-reading activities, the readiness skills, which are almost like the bedrock on which, your any building, any good reading program will stand. So thank you so much. And Amrita has given a plethora of activities which have been absolutely wonderful. So thank you, Amrita. And I hope the audience has enjoyed, and I hope we've been able to add value to this session.
Absolutely. Farida, if you can just repeat, R stands for readiness, E stands for?
E stands for enjoy and engage.
Enjoy and
engage. And A stands for the alphabet sounds and sight words. D is for don't drill, don't scare the child with questions, and don't compromise comprehension over coverage.
Absolutely. I think what you and Amrita achieved were, Amrita gave some really real life games that can be played in the class. And your acronym is always going to remind teachers what to do while teaching reading, what not to do while teaching reading. So I think it has been an absolutely engaging session. I enjoyed sharing the platform with the two of you, and look forward to sharing more platforms with you all.
because I think we have to make reading an enjoyable
Yes.
activity for children. And the only way we
True.
can do that is if we handhold educators into understanding the science behind the art of reading. So it's very, very important that I thank Macmillan for putting together this webinar, and we look forward to many, many, many more. I thank all the panelists for joining us from so many different countries. And if you have missed the presentation, do write to us. Farida, myself, and Amrita will be happy to share with you, but do become members of the Early Childhood Association. Bye, Amrita.
Thank you.
Bye, Farida. And namaste to all the participants. Let's not shake hands now because it's time to be safe. Stay home
Yes.
under quarantine.
Yes.
And
Yes. You-
let's hope that
Yes.
schools open soon.
I know.
Bye bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.